Hi, welcome to the Memphis Flyer podcast. I'm Chris McCoy.
Hey, I'm Alex Greene.
Yeah, and we're here every week to tell you what's in the Memphis Flyer this week, what's going on in Memphis, what's happening in the world, and as much as you want to know. And this week we got, we have the Outstanding Women in Medicine, right, which is something
Yes.
that we do every year. The usual columns, Jackson Baker, Michael Donahue's got the We Saw Yous. There's a great column from Bruce Van Wingarden. And there is, listings with After Dark and all that. So anything that you want to know about what to do in Memphis for the next week, this is where you need to go. Pick up a physical copy. We love those physical copies, don't we?
I do. I just love a good print
And
media.
And he helps lay it out and produce it every week.
Yeah.
I just make words. This guy makes it happen.
Look at that calendar, folks. I go through all the venues and put it all there for you to enjoy Memphis and have it right at your doorstep.
And if you've got a event that you want Memphis to know about, hit this guy up here, Greene at memphisflyer.com. And it's Greene with an E, right?
That's right.
I know. I make that mistake all the time. That's why I need proofreaders. But what I saw this week was the season 2 premiere of Severance on Apple TV Plus, and we watched the first season, and it was really great, and it's sort of unlike anything else on television. It is Adam Scott and Ben Stiller is the showrunner. Remember him from the
Of course.
Jerry Stiller's son. Show you exactly how old we are. And it is about a company where the employees, Lumon Industries, and the employees have a chip in their brain that when they go into the building to work, they become it wipes their memory of everything that happened before. And then when they leave, it does it again. So these people don't know what they do at work at all. It's just two completely different people. They're called innies and outies. Innies are the people who are in the building, outies are the people who are out the building, but they're the same person, like with a split personality. And they started to, the four innies that we follow, who are sort of the main characters, they start to suspect that there's something really sinister going on here. Well, like the whole severing the brain was not a big, yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right, yeah, exactly. And I get it. I read an interview with the showrunner, and he was like, this happened, we did this because I did this. The idea was because I had this really crappy office job, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I just went into the office and then I left and I didn't remember anything that happened. So that was the, my life, from there. And then they started to think about the implications of that idea. And it's like, no, that in fact would be terrible. And the innies, when they don't, if somebody resigns or whatever, and they try to unsever them, the innies effectively die, And so then you have the innie and the outie, they have different motivations, they have different values, and then the innies become curious as to what their life is like outside, And Adam Scott who was the lead guy, and he was on Parks and Rec. You remember? And his outie, he is a widower, and he was so depressed that was why he ended up becoming a severed, was because I don't want to think about this the whole time. I don't want to be depressed my whole life like this. But then he becomes curious, his innie doesn't know this, and becomes curious about what's going on with the outie. And so they in the first season, they figured out ways to get glimpses of what their outside life was like. And I thought after the first season, because it ended with them sort of exposing publicly what was going on in Lumon. And I thought, well, this is the end of it. It's a one-season thing because they can't go anywhere from here, But they got renewed because a lot of people were watching it and they were digging it. And they got So in the new season, Mark, who is Adam Scott character, his innie is back, which you would expect he would not, not be back at all, is back because at the end of last season he discovered that that his wife, who he thought was dead, was actually one of his coworkers as an innie, like somebody that he knew. But once he discovered that, she disappeared. So now he's going back in to try and find the wife that he thought was dead and figure out what's going on with that. So who knows and like I said in my review, it is one of those mystery box shows like Lost or whatever. And Lost falls apart. Those mystery box shows, I think a lot of times, fall apart because there's no plan. They don't know what's going to happen, really, and they're just trying to make it all up as you go along, which was what was so frustrating to me about shows like Battlestar Galactica 2 or Lost, is that like literally you could take the writer's room, take them to Palm Springs for a long weekend, and like just sit down, figure out where we're going with this. And apparently they never did that.
It's a prime situation for jumping the shark.
Yeah.
They're like, let's have Fonzie, surf over a shark.
Do people even know where that comes from anymore?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Happy Days has gone the way of the dodo. But it was a show, Happy Days. The star
Henry Winkler
played Fonzie. It was in the latter seasons of the show, and they were desperate for something to get ratings.
Right, because it's pretty much just a bottle sitcom.
Yeah.
Really, and then it was like, Fonzie the motorcyclist put on his leather jacket and jumped a shark on water skis.
Yeah.
With the leather jacket, and everybody was like, okay, that's when Happy Days went to hell, right? So that's where the jump the shark things come from. But anyways, so far in season 2, it's great. Even if season 2 crashes and burns, it's worth your time to go back and watch season 1 because it's all about, like I was saying, it's not just about the mystery. It's about the whole vibe, and I think that's really what was successful about it. It really captures that feeling of alienation that a lot of people have on their jobs. Not us, who are, of course, extremely satisfied and gratified and fulfilled by our jobs.
No chips required to work at the Flyer. It's one bastion of full humanity.
Right. Full, poor humanity. That's us. But anyways, the other big thing in the paper this week, of course, aside from my work, the other big thing in the paper this week is Sam Moore, and from Sam and Dave, who recently passed away. How old was he?
He was 89.
Wow. Well, that's a full life, isn't it?
Yeah. He did well for his life. Of course, he was only in Memphis for a brief period, but when he passed away, it just kind of was a minor earthquake here in the music community because Sam and Dave are so revered, and rightly so, as these phenomenal stars of Stax Records.
And they were like sort of the cutting edge for a while with them because you had, Isaac Hayes and Dave Porter were writing songs for them.
Yeah.
And they were the they were the stars of the label for a little while, right?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, there was a great European tour in '67, and they were in danger of overshadowing Otis Redding. I mean, they kind of upstaged him. If you look at there's this great footage from their show in Norway, and they come on after Otis, if you can believe that. And that was right and proper because they take it to a whole other level, if that can be imagined. Otis has the crowd in a frenzy, but then Sam and Dave come on, and they've got the stage moves. They not only had this almost telepathic sense of harmony, and they did it, very offhandedly. They made it look so easy, but their harmonies were just pristine. But then they had these amazing dance moves where they'd spin on a dime, and they would banter between each other in the songs, and it was really amazing what they accomplished. And
seek that footage out. It's amazing. It is amazing. That Norwegian footage. I have a friend from Norway who recently found out that his dad was at that show.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
I'd like to interview him
Yeah.
someday.
For sure. So who did you talk to, to do your portrait of Sam?
It was a dream assignment because I was able to speak with David Porter and Deanie Parker, who was the president and CEO of the Soulsville Foundation for many years and helped get the museum and the whole Soulsville Foundation up and running over 20 years ago now. And but in the heyday of Stax, she was the chief publicist and artist relations manager. She knew everyone. And so it was great speaking with those two who were at the heart of this beehive of activity that was Stax Records. But it was interesting. What became apparent to me was that what we think of as the heyday of Stax was really kicked off by the arrival of Sam and Dave. I mean, Stax had some great hits by 1965 when Sam and Dave were brought to Stax by Atlantic Records. They had hits by Otis Redding, Mr. Pitiful, I think had been his most recent one in 1964. They had Booker T and the MGs. William Bell had some hits, but then he went off to, he was drafted, I believe. And so Sam and Dave came along, and as Deanie Parker says in the story, there were not a lot of hits yet under the Stax roster. And for that reason, and because of the reputation of Memphis as this backwards, racist backwater, essentially, Sam and Dave were not thrilled to be sent down here. They were all hyped because they had been signed by Atlantic Records, the New York City label. I think they even moved up to New York from Miami, where they had perfected their nightclub act. And then Atlantic sent them down to Memphis. And, in my story, I quote Sam Moore when he received the honors for Sam and Dave at the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. He described, showing up in Memphis. He said, the first person I met was David Porter, and he had on a little hat, a big sweater, and pedal pushers, like capri jeans. And water came to my eyes, he said. And then came Isaac, who had on a green shirt, low cut, with, I think, a white belt and pink pants or something like that. And then I just full on cried. He was not ready for the wildness and the kind of thinking outside the box that Memphis represented. But, fortunately for Sam and Dave, that is what Stax excelled at, thinking differently from the standard cookie cutter pop hits, and they were doing their own thing. And as David Porter describes, even before Sam and Dave arrived, he and Isaac were crafting a plan and a way to make Sam and Dave stand out and to lean into their strengths as duo performers. Now, it wasn't until their second single was recorded that David Porter and Isaac Hayes became the team to produce Sam and Dave. At first, David Porter worked with Steve Cropper on their first single, and things didn't really take off. But then for the second single, Isaac Hayes and David Porter took Sam and Dave under their wing, and they became kind of a foursome. I was thinking, this may be one of the greatest foursomes in music since the Beatles, but people don't recognize them as such because David Porter and Isaac Hayes were more behind the scenes, crafting the songs, David Porter writing the lyrics, Isaac Hayes doing the music, and then Sam and Dave were the face of that But really, it was the four of them working together around a piano, and it was beautiful to hear David Porter recount those days as they would gather around the piano, and he just had nothing but praise for Sam Moore and the way he internalized these songs. Well, one reason he could was that David Porter and Isaac Hayes' plan for Sam and Dave was to lean in to their roots in the church and to bring church music into the pop world even more than it had before. Now, you could say that's really the basis of soul music, and Ray Charles was doing that.
Yeah, secularized gospel music, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Ray Charles, pioneered just taking a gospel song and changing Jesus to baby, and basically was the formula, and making a great R&B hit out of it. Well, David Porter and Isaac Hayes leaned into that even more, and because it was a duo, you got the call and response even more than with Ray Charles. Ray Charles had the Raelettes, and they had the call and response, but it was even more pronounced with Sam and Dave, in the middle of verses, even interrupting each other or shouting and commenting on each other with like little laughs, or or they just had a looseness that kind of evoked that that sense in a church of just letting the worldly concerns, just letting them go, and just being free, and that's what Sam and Dave excelled at.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, like Soul Man was a huge, when I was very young, was like maybe even the doorway that I got into soul from. Like, it just opened this whole new world to me when I heard Soul Man.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's like, to me personally, the most beloved music, in my life, And anyways, you got to read Alex's story. You can go to memphisflyer.com and get the full experience. Pick up a physical copy. We got boxes all over town. And Alex, thanks a lot for joining me this morning.
My pleasure.
Getting up and drinking your coffee and coming out here to talk to the camera for a little while. And we will see you guys